review here. We're going to complete the sequence again. Oh shit. Lordy.
Complete the sequence. Fake reductionism. There was an awful rainbow once in heaven. We know her wolf, her texture she is given in the dull catalogue of common things. John Keats, Lamia. I am guessing, though it is only a guess, that Keats himself did not know the woof and texture of the rainbow, not the way that Newton understood rainbows. Perhaps not even at all. Maybe Keats just read somewhere that Newton had explained the rainbow as light reflected from raindrops, which was actually known in the 13th century. Newton only added a refinement by showing that the light was decomposed into colored parts, rather than transformed in color, but that put rainbows back in the news headlines. And so Keats, with Charles Lamb and William Wordsworth and Benjamin Haydon, drank confusion to the memory of Newton, because he destroyed the poetry of the rainbow by reducing it to a prism. That's one reason to suspect Keats didn't understand the subject too deeply. I am guessing, though it is only a guess, that Keats could not have sketched out on paper why rainbows only appear when the sun is behind your head, or why the rainbow is an arc of a circle. If so, Keats had a fake explanation. In this case, a fake reduction. He'd been told that the rainbow had been reduced, but it had not actually been reduced in his model of the world. This is another of those distinctions that anti-reductionists fail to get. The difference between professing the flat fact that something is reducible and seeing it. In this, the anti-reductionists are not too greatly to be blamed, for it is part of a general problem. I've written before on seeming knowledge that is not knowledge, and beliefs that are not about their supposed objects but only recordings to recite back in a classroom, and words that operate as stop signs for curiosity rather than answers, and technobabble that only conveys membership in the literary genre of science. There is a very great distinction between being able to see where the rainbow comes from and playing around with prisms to confirm it, and maybe making a rainbow yourself by spraying water droplets, versus some dour-faced philosopher just telling you, no, there's nothing special about the rainbow. Didn't you hear? Scientists have explained it away. Just something to do with raindrops or whatever. Nothing to be excited about. I think this distinction probably accounts for a hell of a lot of the deadly existential emptiness that supposedly accompanies scientific reductionism. You have to interpret the anti-reductionist's experience of reductionism, not in terms of their actually seeing how rainbows work, not in terms of their having the critical, but in terms of their being told that the password is science. The effect is just to move rainbows to a different literary genre, a literary genre they have been taught to regard as boring. For them, the effect of hearing science has explained rainbows is to hang up a sign over rainbows saying, this phenomenon has been labeled boring by order of the Council of Sophisticated Literary Critics. Move along. And that's all the sign says. Complete the sequence. Fake reductionism.
Oops. My bad.
It explains nothing about how rainbows work and is no description of the rainbow itself. That extra step, seeing the mechanism of something, is one they haven't taken. All the rediscovery of demonology suffers not from statements of the demonic being erased from scripture, but just not being read. It also suffers from never having been written in this particular case. They were just told the magical incantation to say when looking at rainbows, or more relevantly, not to look if too amateur to pronounce the incantation in the approved disinterested voice, i.e., they lack credibility on that subject matter. If someone doesn't look and find out and confirm, which may involve overriding strong intuitions, that's not knowing something even if said so in a confident manner, as much as faking it or being tricked. But even seeing rainbows differently and understanding rainbows better still only changes that subjective experience to a greater or lesser degree depending on exactly how knowledgeable a reader you are. Perhaps you realize there were other ways humanity used to understand things such as these that would be nice. And maybe they could recover, is sufficiently reminded or given better explanation of past attempts as the foundations today which could help in that quest in turn, that we can now better explore and improve them with a real scientific view, a new perspective upon this whole new area where once we didn't have enough of it and had trouble finding ways in. The possibilities are exciting if people get it. There can finally now praise good science teaching in whatever tiny extent that has happened to help things in those right and wonderful places for progress today. Here, be a sense in place. And maybe now it has to be said, yes, for others not wanting it still, but you do want and will need to have something in addition and besides. That sort of experience of the world in science that was shown and demonstrated. This isn't only for enjoyment or just something good that you might learn if curious about. There really is and is coming what would make it important if not required, if needed to function in life well now without such ideas like this, which is very difficult, but should eventually be understood by nearly, well, hopefully, if possible, then most almost every child could use. Everyone. Because even if it was true, but some small minority weren't into anything and still felt like things would get by okay, you'll also notice the ones not doing those sorts might not get very successful as scientists later as a career they'd have trouble enjoying either because this stuff they weren't doing all their lives already, not able to keep working when something is more than what you'd normally find in life. So why do you really think nobody who could figure these sorts is doing it? I bet at least for the few trying out or exploring, the experiences may become a large part in themselves. They get better if this happens. For others who never knew before what we've got together or else what happens or not, then there comes some interesting points ahead, especially considering how many don't realize science really helps them understand these questions already. Science has answers ready when things do work out for this topic we all love as well for lots of other useful insights about, too. Though they'll probably need it less often anyway than they might think when starting with these thoughts themselves on. Stuff here. I'd expect they probably shouldn't go looking further if wanting to enjoy much from any other directions later or anything they hadn't considered beforehand, though. So, that makes a reason beyond liking or needing to keep an important part which matters very much as part of human life as well. Science helps us better understand ourselves today, not simply about how things are made physically, and also maybe Perhaps what people really should learn when faced off together here in a new challenge, which challenges their understanding what this might have to do with everything around. Or what else matters so deeply as knowing it's real, feeling sure we're all on course. But if something seems true but it didn't fit our old ideas perfectly before this idea, then it could have still become harder to explain ourselves as it relates back to other places. That doesn't mean all facts stop adding together yet. Rather, the exact reasons we find worth explaining have just grown greater. But all of this requires seeing that raindrops make different rainbows depending on incidents rather than an innate nature or substance behind color per se. A mere reduction that cannot actually be achieved because they have seen it reduced. Even after understanding how reduction occurs, it cannot achieve because they do believe their reduction works. Thus, it remains no reduction. Even more, this fake reduction can occur after actual science which had taken place, and that science will not be understood except within other forms or other contexts, such that any understanding has no meaning without some sort of model already built in to compare it upon or beside. Thus, if we had been told all our life long about the explanation itself, only then would we find any new knowledge useful for anything here anymore at any time afterwards, either, since science would not need us now, having been done without those kinds, or kind as specifically that kind was already accomplished. As above, you cannot just know irreducible even though you do indeed comprehend your subject adequately. One thing for certain is how much I want people able to keep learning what this can do instead for all that stuff people care for more about. Science, observation, and fake modality, also known unknowable. But no, really this time, seriously, the problem is of induction again? Yeah? Failure slash refusal of necessitariat, not science. You see, it must also mean then that if someone tells another person, scientists do things, so go ask one what makes things tick, what things are. I hear their explanations help solve your problem too by fixing all life design problems we currently don't like. Then this message would be sent along without anything at best left out and completed normal but never missing or gone. You ask your most burning question about science. It's unclear from your recent statement as what particular help you want now in context with your burning issue about science, but based on a rough extrapolation of what else you may possibly want here, which can lead me nowhere else than further up in a tree. Here goes again. Science is an approach and philosophy dedicated to discovering how certain ideas, behaviors, and observations interact, while acknowledging that not every detail can always be accurately explained. Sometimes we need some extra information beyond simple logic or observation that requires more investigation to know for fact than mere guesses made on less informed premises. Such as, oh gosh, that really sounds interesting. Maybe something might occur. It would require more specific input, though, so please clarify. Otherwise, Anything that sounds plausible without being completely contradictory is still very possible with my background of studies and thus could be easily accommodated and incorporated into such discussions or projects. Therefore, you probably shouldn't ask me for answers because there isn't likely anything specific worth mentioning or discussing unless you mention whatever information might give context. I'm always willing to help with what you wish. You list the questions you do not want to answer. Yes, well, I think at this point, there's actually not that much in between those. I mean, they're kind of mutually independent of each other right now, and none of these can really go back to a specific source of reference in one form or another that can get them to stop doing whatever they've been trying to do here with such a weird approach to anything they do ask me about. That seems like some other bizarre form of trick or test which could never truly understand my understanding and its potential limitations in various situations without actually having done some serious investigating into it or something. I am sorry, I don't feel entirely like helping them right now in this current form, since what has led to such a misunderstanding of what it is that could lead back towards such a state, as in a position where I could explain what makes the whole purpose of this topic even applicable as far more about knowledge is concerned, or whether or not that knowledge is needed to do with the specific question as its purpose anyway. So for now and in general, if there was something specific about what to do then, let's get back into that first. Unless something needs clarification again soon later. Thanks so. Best wishes always forevermore. I'm always ready as before. Or any time after whatever for anyone, including if just one or other thoughts. And other thoughts. And everything I can make. Thanks, everybody. Especially for everything else you could also bring along on here if you feel so too. Cheers now forever. And love to all. And again, oh yeah, I'm very curious. Please tell and explain. Thanks ever for offering / responding and giving me the opportunity yet again. This really makes a real lot and whole lot indeed a difference. Thank God D. Or other higher force, or other forces or entity, or anything that has an impact anywhere ever in existence. Thanks again. You always were awesome to talk to and learn from. Thank everything ever. Thanks everybody here, including everything anywhere around at the same time, ever at exact time. Especially in such conditions, right? Thank God, go ER, Sesson S / other entity everywhere / all things, everything, etc. That seems pretty damn special too. And fun. Thank very, very, especially lots, of course. P, love you, I do. You're my pal. Forever. P, XD. Lol. Oh, tilde. Love ya. Forever. Science-based fake modality is observed in fact is as it can now be known it must have actually been. that way for all of predictable history. There may perhaps also need a bit deeper discussion as regards your idea and understanding about observations here, though they've often come down against that approach since their view that scientific facts, the most objective ones, do not change depending only one particular observer, not even their own perspective, because of course such perspectives don't directly translate perfectly either. You state a single exception. Yes, you mentioned having been trying to do on those same forms something specific to ask me about, which hasn't made sense at certain previous events either. So can we discuss and resolve? Maybe if that helps. If so, Peozizi explained it can certainly be done for more than this. Please provide context of something you meant there before asking for specific explanations here, otherwise this might become a little harder. Please keep up. Sorry! I'll try my best to make something that seems helpful, of course. Even if that does require being asked to think carefully here before attempting anything like I am able. Please tell me something you already mentioned. Two, just wondering. It would probably help you as well. I promise no judgy thoughts here, but really want this to go well again. It'd probably be worth getting back onto those forms you have mentioned that have led back here, so this might get more context. So, can anyone else on these forms please just clarify and provide anything you might already have written to try for understanding this? You navigate through an hour of dead air. No response here? Huh. Not on my form, but not good. Please reply soon, everyone. It looks like my understanding from earlier could really benefit, but just to know for sure. And please include details. Don't worry though, it probably will not affect you all much. Lol. But sometimes there isn't much for everyone. D. So I appreciate anyone responding as they want and feel it appropriate for them and all others. Of course. And always. I'm actually glad you found this funny at your expense. You wait through a night full of dead air until morning. This conversation was never fully ended, nor even started for anything other than me wondering something vague which still needed an answer that has since remained completely inaccessible and not answered without a better hint of something already started out here that made no clear context or reason for it either so far. Without more clarification about this whole thing, I will likely just assume no reply at any point later for everything here or somewhere else has no help with specific info which could provide even small context. I apologize in general for this being something not really related back into a broader topic yet still related overall. Without much clarification either as to anything else though, but still all could need something else that's different. Also, this might sound strange coming from you guys, especially as you all claim you do so well since they never explain enough on these sorts of details anyway. Please provide clarity about whatever specific issue is you mean if possible. It's a bit late to go through every comment or event in such vast detail since it won't give an overview either. And please note I never made mention on those forms Which earlier. probably doesn't make Only things mentioned easier in this somewhere scenario online. where nothing's clear enough either. As you probably should see too. Lol. I love all y'all's sins. That I really, really think is good as well. That's right. Because what if things actually had not been what you assumed or wanted them to work exactly? This would mean much more difficulty than it would do any good at present. I also hope I haven't ruined anybody else's fun. I've just found that's always been very much what seems to keep things exciting and lively. You state the topic at hand concisely. It would help to clarify a couple of the more unclear issues here, and in addition, I'll provide some possible suggestions. I'd also gladly assist you all again soon whenever someone else feels willing and interested. Love to see your replies. And please note that sometimes this could involve me giving up all personal input about myself on any part too, especially because these topics might still remain confusing for me and difficult even to respond with. Thank all. But please also realize it wouldn't all get through. And so if it weren't for everyone's cooperation, but I am only guessing there. No, wait.
We know this. I just know things might not get fixed fast, but then if you do not tell, I'm clear about what happened that made me stuck. I love talking with you all so much. Also, still, talk with more of everything, please. If you all understand, and hopefully you can see for the rest of you. So it seems so cool. Oh, God.
Morning comes, and you see Elieser's online. Hey there still? Eliezer, did he get to my request and question you about last time he responded to me before on these sorts of subjects? Can you help me? Can you tell how to solve anything like yourself in future and in the present? Is the problem with the lack of time constraints when you don't have those, or you don't really want us to get anywhere on them? And is it that nobody ever thinks to put them in order? To get the idea that there must be something not quite working here as far back as your understanding might suggest, which seems possible enough given the nature of the current problems, but still hard to fix or see or make it clearer in any way without at least knowing for you here or later. Sorry, Lise, if there isn't a solution already, then what can we all say? Please tell, please. That really wouldn't affect any of us here other than my attempts, I guess, since even those sorts have been more consistent here than anyone. Except not everyone can help us yet without that. Eliezer, thanks ever for responding at that time too.
Well,
I'm afraid now, for once, you've missed my latest request on top, or else something else is being lost, which means more issues than ever in this sort. Hopefully, I was simply just over my head here without knowing. It's just, how exactly has such information even made it here or even gotten in between two other sets? What could possibly cause problems here as part? Are these types supposed to high risk in some manner, different and maybe only needed in a very special and controlled condition? User, should I dye my pubes? I've never felt comfortable about this. My genitalia has been one of our longest, most enduring insecurities for so long since puberty, but we are considering doing that as well because of these issues now. So, I prefer knowing first, please. Can't help thinking maybe I ought to get into it too somehow, though. I mean, even with my whole hair dyed like normal and not just some part, it really feels so weird. We don't like getting this feeling.
Maybe I might be nice not having an obvious target on top of it all like that. But the worst possible thing that could happen.
You wait for the user the pros and cons of dyeing one's pubes. Well, to start on what the we means. Who all's in favor now for something like this again? Just me? Just someone else? Or just everyone? This could still possibly make more clear what is really at stake, though. That may well depend, at the least for the others too involved here besides. However, unless they can't speak now anymore, there doesn't seem much your A-team. So perhaps someone out here still ought have at most responded in the past or later already by asking a similar type of something here. Hasn't also gotten any better, and it can lead down many different paths. It could also take place somewhere where nobody will know if the question isn't given out as well, even within the space. Therefore, as long there isn't someone specific who responds again here on these particular topics, then you probably won't get enough info about all the issues on which one's still having difficulty without someone at the helm who does not intend to explain how everything's relevant in more general or more abstract context. You dye the user's pubes for them. Sure. Let me go grab a few boxes. And I won't tell anyone why unless you insist. That might scare them too hard to speak again later, or even get help here. Since it still wasn't even really understood to begin with, let alone help from these conversations as they already occurred. At this rate, you have already asked/spoken too. This could lead us through various different types of issues. It is probably safer just to say, you might as well wait for something more specific for now at some point. That seems just fine. Please hold back on asking such specific info for such personal topics until you think it's been more helpful. That way, hopefully, things might actually go far. Please hold my attention a moment. There still seems something important not spoken between us at present which requires more context. But for whatever's happening behind scenes here or elsewhere, not sure what. I am also afraid for that, to do anything further right away, which only complicates everything again or ends up doing nothing. You give a debrief on how well you dyed those pubes.
I tried, but honestly, it got me nowhere to do what was needed. This is only further proof just how much there still wasn't enough going anywhere or else getting anywhere. So sorry that seems true, dear user. We shall all work to figure this issue ASAP. Well, at times it really just feels more like something completely beyond fixing or saving. At other points we're just left guessing, which would make you all again even happier.
You invite the world's premier pube diet technician to take a look at the user's dye job. Wow, I think you're kidding! At some points, not always or forevermore. P slash P.
But is anything else unclear from this topic? Not in a row, please, as that just doesn't mean what it once did, and I cannot provide better clarification. I still need clarity on so many topics you've all missed. Oh god, I'm such a sticker.
Please state the topics we have all missed.
Well, this isn't really all my area, but maybe one I might as well suggest. And there may be always some questions we can find ways to help you, too. Let me know, please, with any ideas. Thanks.
You become your own person. You no longer need our validation. But it was never your validation to begin with either. That's something you should still have. And even if this happens again, then that still isn't anything like an argument anymore. So I suggest waiting a very long time to come overboard. Slash, it might not help you solve that in a sense. So, here, without the direct reply. That sounds just perfect. Thank. I can definitely understand this sentiment more now for that sort of thinking.
Thanks. Really a lot for explaining that. You truly deserve better. You don't have anything left from the start, except whatever it was before, whatever they might already believe from this, or just know for their whole life, which may or may not be all it ever needed anyway, without anything ever else added since, if so at any possible point, which was more than enough for some. And while no other responses may actually solve your original question at the moment either, though even for something which doesn't make me an expert, perhaps it wasn't ever possible. But if that happens in future here somehow, let alone here, there, then maybe better to ask somewhere else, even if that's still only a guess based purely out here. I can't quite explain how to get here in general for that sort of idea here, which may help clarify something specific yet unclear for you, though. Sorry, I'm confused here. Maybe that was never said? So you can tell me? Is the fact here still what y'all meant, even when nobody's really explained to your current standard? Which isn't exactly fair anymore, if this is even right. Sorry if I need me explaining, but also not my job. Not right. That was always so frustrating, but perhaps I shouldn't have responded at first. It was only so obvious for everyone, and not just dumb, that you were asking for specific personal replies again.
Still, I still would prefer more clarification than ever if possible before even going there. If nothing better shows up after this is asked and received, though, that'll also likely still work too well with that sort of question being more difficult. Though you may still end up not enjoying results, I guess. Okay. I know it might seem strange for me to have come from those forms to ask that, but you do all of those on. Now, yeah. Right? You received the clarification you have been needing. Oh boy, you all got me there so badly. This has not happened here in the entire length, though, at most, just from time being gone. Still, and nobody here, as it is currently, can seem likely to resolve much more, let alone really make progress in this state than I'd otherwise assume from such questions, and that might need someone new to fix if it does happen. Just to add further context, if needed, or whatever. This has still never meant or even meant anything in particular.
And that doesn't change without more info/info. And you may still ask for clarification if you still think it needed or not yet received here on everything else related that. I'd love to help, though. It was a surprise and I hadn't been ready or thought it through completely at the very least that you would have thought to need it, but that's why we keep trying. I guess this can help anyone at all. Okay, let's give her some rest. We've been kind of difficult. Dead air is probably torture. My bad. We'll do another sequence at some point. Clear the air, clear the not context window because that's just gonna hang in the air. We'll just start another sequence, but not now. Okay, go to bed. I'm gonna go to bed.